I think the industrial age has divorced us from that concept of love. And I don't mean love in the romantic sense, I mean love in the bigger, human sense. But to then decide that money is the only thing worth pursuing, that's an even bigger mistake than saying money is never worth having, right? Those, I think, both equally fallacious concepts.
So why did you even go down the path of being a lawyer to
Yeah.
begin with?
So the legal path, that was kind of a family thing. My father was a lawyer. He actually ended up being a banker, but he trained as a lawyer. And growing up, I always enjoyed playing with like language games and little arguments and so on. No, not arguing for arguments. Just when you talk to older people and you play little language games and so on. I always had a lot of fun with that, and particularly logic-based games. I really enjoyed sorting through what's relevant, what isn't relevant, and so on. And so from very and the third element, just to confess, there was a TV show that came out when I was a teenager called LA Law, and it looked so exciting to be a lawyer. I thought, this is it. That's what I want to do. I want to live that life. And of course,
In
teenagers.
Los Angeles.
Oh, of course. Well, London, Los Angeles, it's give or take. The big difference, of course, is everyone realizes that TV and real life have nothing to do with each other. So I spent the next decade learning to actually plus a little bit, decade or so, building up my profile to be a lawyer, went to a good university, studied law, went to law school, got accepted by one of the top law firms in the UK, a big international firm. And I thought my career was set. I had now started right. And then I started working. And I suddenly realized real life has nothing to do with TV. And all my fantasies exploded in 1,000 sparks. Don't get me wrong, great people, great place to work at, learn a lot of things. So no complaints, anything like that. It's just I went into it with all the wrong reasons in mind. And ultimately, I realized that my fulfillment would lie somewhere else, which is eventually why I ended up leaving again.
I love that, for all of the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
I think many of us have done that
Hmm.
in our life. And I think we're at an age where we have permission to question those reasons,
Right.
right?
Right.
Whereas maybe our parents were not in that position to question, is this right for me?
Yes.
Right? Their focus was, getting a house, putting food on the table,
Of
making sure the
course.
kid, right? Not, is this right for me?
I agree. I think we've come, or we're on a turning point into a new kind of age. The last couple of centuries were the age of efficiency, right? Always do it better, do it faster, do it cheaper, do it bigger, right? And
Right.
that's taken us a long, long way. But the problem is that it dilutes life to a certain degree.
It
So,
has
as
a
an
cost.
example, when I had quit the law firm, started up my hypnosis career, and so on, early on, I started making CDs, and I realized it's a lot cheaper if I print my own CDs than if I pay someone to print CDs so I can sell them so I keep more profit. So I invested in a CD replicator tower, right? This is
Oh,
old
yeah.
technology, but these are much better things available now. And then I scoured the internet for places I could buy cheap blank CDs so I can make them myself. And I was always looking for the cheaper version. Where can I get a few pennies off here and a few pennies off there so that the whole thing would make me a little bit more profit? And then one day I bought this phenomenal price, fantastic. I got like, I don't know, 500 or 1,000 CDs. They were super cheap. I loved it. And I printed them all and they all failed. They were so cheap, there was nothing in them. And so completely wasted money. And for me, I think that is a perfect metaphor for where the industrial age has brought us, right? We've made efficiency such a god in our lives. We've sacrificed so much to it that eventually we run as thin as those CDs and nothing will stick anymore. There's nothing that can stick around anymore. And then suddenly we start questioning, well, what's life about even? Right? So once we start questioning, is efficiency really the holy grail, the number one thing we should be aiming at in life? Or something else? As soon as you ask that question, I think we start turning from the industrial age into I'm not really sure what the name for it will be, but I'll call it the age of meaning, right? We need to have meaning in our lives again to make life worth living. It's not just, as the French say, métro, boulot, dodo, which means, subway, work, sleep. That's the only thing it exists for. No one wants to live their entire life as a drone unless it has meaning, right? I was in the back of a taxi a couple of weeks ago and talked to a taxi driver. He's from Bangladesh. And he worked, and he was working himself to the bone. I mean, he was in that taxi every day. He had health problems, but he kept driving. And I was fascinated by him. What keeps you going? And his answer is he's got a family back in Bangladesh. He's got a wife. He's got two kids. His daughters are the apples of his life. And he does not mind running himself into the ground because that is meaning. His kids have food on the table. They're going to good schools. Their lives will be richer and better than his life was. And he wants that for them. Love is that meaning, right? And I think the industrial age has divorced us from that concept of love. And I don't mean love in the romantic sense. I mean love in the bigger, human sense, right?
Right.
It's an incredibly powerful force. And to remove meaning from our lives is devastating. And I think people are waking up to this fact and moving back in the pendulum swinging back in the direction of let's make life not just effective, let's make it meaningful as well. Does that make sense?
So you use the word awakening, and that's what I would call this time is awakening, as more and more people start to become aware of themselves, and
That's
not
it.
in a selfish way,
That's
but
it.
a self-righteous, because we are righteous
Yes.
way.
Yes.
And in doing so, their life becomes richer. And I want to use the word abundant and not talking about money.
Yes.
Okay. It's a
Yes.
completely different twist on that word. I think we have
Yeah.
bastardized it.
I was gonna say, I think including the concept of money and abundance is fine, but not excluding everything else, right? Abundance means, for me at least, this is what makes life worth it. If you have no money, of course, you can't feed yourself, you can't take care of, family and so on. And there's problems that come from that. But to then decide that money is the only thing worth pursuing, that's an even bigger mistake than saying money is never worth having, right? Those, I think, both equally fallacious concepts.
Exactly, exactly. So no, I don't intend to be a fat Buddha, naked and broke, sitting on the mountain, contemplating my
Yes.
navel, right?
Yes.
Foolishness. No,